Hello there, one and all, and welcome to day 26 of the MBD Month of Mindset Challenge. Today's task is called Bookend, and you're probably going to have to wait until at least tomorrow to pull this one off, simply because a bookend is about picking and choosing and being extremely selective about what you do first thing in the morning and what you do last thing at night. And I mean literally first thing and literally last thing. So the exact first thing you do in the morning, right? I'm not talking about like have a bit of a kind of like yawn in bed or anything like that. I'm talking about what do you do? What is the first active thing that you do in the morning? And I say active, but a lot of people it is just to reach for the mobile phone. It's to reach for that phone and basically just go straight on. Now the problem with this is it does something called priming. The first thing we do in the day does something called priming, and priming is a thing where basically the first thing that happens to us sets us up for the tone of what is to come. Now it is totally and utterly possible to change direction from once being primed. And if you think about it, a great example of being primed is how you get stuck in traffic on the way into work, or you get cut up by someone in traffic on the way to work. And you go in and you're still angry, and that event there has primed you into the way that you are going into your meetings and things, and you actually take some of that anger and frustration forward with you. Well, the phone, one of the things it does, regardless of what you're using it for, is it teaches us to be in a reactive state. Now we can be in two states. We can be in a proactive state or a reactive state, and we can flip between those two states quite regularly, so it can feel like we're in both sometimes, but we're always in one or the other. We're always reacting to something or being proactive, which means looking specifically to the future and thinking to ourselves, what can we do now before it needs being done? So the phone puts us in a reactive state simply because you see all those notifications on there, and the notification, even if you don't respond to a message or anything like that, you're just looking at posts. Each one of those posts is actually your brain going, do I want to react to this? What do I want to react to this? How do I want to react to this? And it puts us into that reactive state. And if you find being on your phone to be a positive thing most of the time, then actually probably first thing in the morning it's not so bad for you. But if you're finding that it's the type of thing that puts you in that state where you're like, oh, that person, I mean, they're talking about that again, or it's like the news is always bad, or whatever it may be. So the phone I often see as one of the worst ones. Now I'm going to put my hand up and actually be accountable here and say I've been bookending with the phone again recently. It was something that I really got out of the habit of, and something I'm kind of back in the habit of now. So I'm going to take ownership of that and actually promise here live on this video that I'm going to take control of that and I'm going to do something about it. Because if I'm honest, it doesn't put me in the greatest mood for the rest of the day unless the things that come in the morning are all positive. And that does happen sometimes, but let's face it, it's a lottery, isn't it? It's like it's leaving things up to chance, and it's leaving the first hour or so of my day, my mindset, my mentality within that first hour or so of the day, it's leaving it to chance. And that is no bueno, that is no good. And so that's what one of the things is. The first part of the bookend is what we do first thing in the day. It primes us for what comes next. One of the best ones I once did was I used to just literally sit on the edge of my bed and do reach up, hands together, bring them to my heart. And that was it. Just like the tiniest bit of a sun salutation. But I was being mindful of I was choosing that first action rather than that first action of they choosing me. And it was just a moment just to say, right, I am going to start this day with something just for me, a breath exercise, some stretching. And it took 20, 30 seconds. Probably I did it a lot slower than I've just done it on the demonstration there, but it only took 20 or 30 seconds. And then maybe I, go to the low as you do in the morning. And then maybe sometimes I'd have my breakfast or whatever, or before even checking the phone. And historically I got into that habit because when I was working as a personal trainer, I needed to see whether someone had cancelled on me before I left the house. And that was important. So I had to check that phone at like 5 a.m. pretty much every single day, just in case I didn't need to be in work for another hour or whatever. Now I don't have that reason. So I've got back into it just out of pure habit. The second part of it is the end of the day, the last thing we do. And that's not about priming, well it is, but it's about priming us for sleep, right? The last thing we want to do before we go to bed, we want it to be something restful. We want it to be something that actually switches us off, that brings us down, that takes us from that sympathetic nervous system into the parasympathetic nervous system. Because if we're still there, high adrenaline, like playing computer games for me, for example, straight before bed, not good. Reading something, much, much better. But then scrolling again, being triggered or being kind of like pulled into that reactive state on social media, again, no good. So it's looking at the things before bed that actually help me to end up in a restful state, because that's what we want. You may find sometimes that you go to bed with a lot on your mind, and that can be certainly there before exacerbating with anything else, but it can very much be exacerbated by the choice of activity we do directly before going to bed. Listening to a meditation, great idea. Listening to some calming music, fantastic idea. Reading something. One of the things I love about reading actually is sometimes I actually just fall asleep while I'm reading. That's great. Job done. So it's like picking something like that, because there is so often the question asked, when's the best time of day to meditate, or when's the best time to do yoga or anything like that. And I always say to people, it depends on when it fits into your schedule. But the best time to do something, if you can only manage 30 seconds in the morning, 30 seconds in the evening for your mindset today, if that's all the time that you have to dedicate to yourself, well, that's going to give you a much bigger return on your investment than 2 sets of 30 seconds anywhere else in the day. So that's the bookend, and I will be back with you tomorrow for day 27.